You're listening to Chameleon Church. Biblical Antidotes for the Modern Man. With your host, Allan Aguirre.
Good morning. Okay, let's get this out of the way. Look at that. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Look at that. Good morning. It's Tuesday, December 24th. Oh my gosh. We have one more show before the decade is over. This is the second to last show of the decade. Anyway, good morning. It's December 24th. It's the Chameleon Church Show. My name's Allan Aguirre. I'm your host, coming live and direct to you from Park City, Utah. So I had a little bit of set envy from last Tuesday and Joel's father, Joel Prather's background with the bookshelf and everything. So I put a light up. Normally I have the window cracked open and natural light will eventually seep into the room and I eventually start looking normal. I still have my little LED up here to bounce off the wall, but I busted out one of my, you can see the light here. Hold on. It's still backward. I still can't figure this out. Look at that. See, there's a little bit of the reflection of the light right there on the monitor. So anyway, so yeah, it just looks a little different. Anyway, what else? It's Hanukkah. Oh, I was going to show you guys something that's been on my desk for like 2 months. It's a little chameleon from, I guess, a Disney show that my granddaughter let me borrow. And I had it on my monitor here as like a little mascot. Remember how Darryl has all his lizards, chameleon stuff? Can't say lizard because there's people out there that'll start talking about serpentine, this and that, and it's too early for that. No, it's too early for that stuff. Anyway, my nose is like. Anyway, it's Hanukkah. Tonight is the third night of Hanukkah. We started Hanukkah on Sunday. I know some of you probably started it 15 weeks ago or whatever nonsense calendar you might be on. But anyway, Hanukkah is a third night tonight, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, third night of Hanukkah. My daughter in Dallas and her husband and their 1-year-old baby fly in tonight. They'll be coming in tonight. And she's actually my granddaughter, Eliora. She's actually a Hanukkah baby. She was born in Hanukkah last year. And her name's Eliora, Light of God. So they fly in tonight. And then what else is going on tomorrow? So here's what we used to do. If you have my book, The Face Unlocked. If you don't, you can get it at planetbluemedia.com. That's planetbluemedia.com. You're in with Santa. I am. I'm in with Saint Nick. So if you read my book, The Feast Unlocked, when it comes to the Hanukkah chapter, I talk about how we do Hanukkah. We lived in Dallas for 18 years, and there's the churches we were going to. A lot of people that went to those churches also went to like the seminary, like Dallas Theological Seminary and things of that nature, or they were Wycliffe missionary students, something like that. But there was a lot of young adults that were in Dallas on their own without family. And a lot of times they wouldn't be able to get to wherever they're from or their family, and vice versa. So what we started doing, and again, we were in Dallas for 18 years. We were there quite a long time. So what we started doing was, because we didn't do Christmas per se, we just didn't do it the way most people do it or at all. But anyway, so here's what we started doing on Christmas Day. We started doing this big, huge, extravagant, like traditional Christmas Day thing, with turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, the whole 9 yards. It's basically Thanksgiving. Because, we don't have a Christmas tree and we don't have anything like that. So, and it would invite these people, these young adults or young missionary families over to the house for them. We would do this for them because they did celebrate Christmas and they were without family. And, they say it's the loneliest time of the year and on and on and on and on. So as a ministry, because we also worked with the homeless, but as a ministry to them, we would throw this big, huge Christmas Day deal thing and invite them over. And then eventually we ended up inviting over family and friends that did celebrate Christmas that we did know And so we would have this big, huge shindig at our house, and we would serve them like that. And then we would do like this big old white elephant gifting thing. Anyway, I talk about that in here because that's how we do Hanukkah as well. So tomorrow, being Hanukkah, there's an LDS woman that we've known since we've moved here that is now divorced and completely ostracized. It's an ugly, bad story. I don't want to necessarily talk about publicly, but we're doing a brunch to serve her because she's literally not invited to go to her family because she left the LDS faith, and she still reaches out to us and my daughter for comfort. When it's really hard for the LDS to make that transition from non-LDS to Christian. They usually go LDS gone wild. That usually happens, and that's where we're at. So we're doing that tomorrow, and then I don't know what we're doing Thursday, but then I think Friday we're having our community Hanukkah party. Presents. It's all about the presents. It's not the gift that counts. It's the present. It's the actual gift. Yeah. To receive is better to give. Yeah. You guys see that awesome post I posted from Michael Rood about Hanukkah? I love that guy. We're way too much alike. I loved what he said. I don't just wait to get on front of the TV camera to talk about this stuff. I'm out there talking about it in this. And yeah, it's awesome. All right. Our guest is waiting in the wings. Hello, Angelo. Hello. This is my friend Angelo. We popped in on his surprised, clean taco eating about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And we called it. He was eating tacos. I was in the prophetic. I called it, and he was. There's a little place in Dallas called Fuel City Tacos. Remember Fuel City? Yeah. So anyway, his lovely wife had just served him a plate of tacos when he turned on his camera, when we said hello. And we were betting on whether it was chicharron. With no further ado, this is my buddy Angelo. We're going to talk with him this morning. What's up?
How's it going?
Good. What are you up to?
I am up to being up.
So you are in Tennessee.
Yep.
And what city are you in these days?
What's that?
What city are you in these days?
For some reason, I can't understand anything you're saying.
That's because I'm in the prophetic again. And what city are you in these days?
Oh, I am technically not allowed to disclose it. I can only tell you it's in the Middle Tennessee, Nashville area.
You guys are not in Columbia, Tennessee anymore?
I literally cannot tell you, and I'll tell you why. You know the idiots that we deal with sometimes.
Oh,
and so when people find out what city we're in,
they come looking.
They come look. So our guys have had death threats. They've had all types of. I mean, we've had people. It's insane what people have said to us, and yeah. Anyway, so
wow.
We had a 17-year-old. We had a 17-year-old, a kid who was volunteering and reached out to a guy, and the guy told him, "You better hope I never find you in a dark alley. I will, said a bunch of graphic stuff to him." So we looked up the guy, and he's a minister and a social worker.
Praise Jesus.
And works with kids. So we just had to tell him, like, hey, man, we're going to have to turn this over to your boss, this conversation you're having with the child. This is weird. It was absolutely weird. Insane people out there. So
let me bring people up to speed on what it is that we're talking about. So if you read my other book, this happens almost every Tuesday. It cracks the hell out of me. It cracks me up. But anyway, if you read my other book, This Thing is Spiritual, I give a lot of testimony about a ministry that I got involved with in 2003. Yes, not long ago, called the Extreme Tour. And I talk about my time with the Extreme Tour, what it is. Basically, it's a grassroots evangelistic ministry where 3, 4, 5 bands will go to a little city or a town or whatever, work with a local church, play either in a parking lot or a skate park or the city square center, whatever. And 3, 4, 5 bands, various types of music. and preach the gospel. Basically, it's an evangelistic tool for that local church body to utilize to reach out to their community, because evangelism is quite the difficult. I don't know. People just don't know how to do it, or they're afraid of it. It's kind of like mind blowing. You know what I thought of yesterday, and I was going to post this yesterday, but I didn't post it. In my opinion, being an evangelist is so much easier than being an apostle, a prophet, a teacher, or a pastor, in that order. In my opinion, being an evangelist is easier than those other four. And here's why I say that. When you're an apostle, a prophet, you're correcting already believers. You're correcting believers with bad theology, bad doctrine, bad habits, not walking not walking correctly. You're reproving them. You're reproofing them. And you're carrying the supernatural mojo and all that. Just those two things, correction, reproof, and walking with the supernatural mojo is what gets you killed, apparently, because that's what happened to Jesus, right? Spoke the authority of the word into people's transformative word into people's lives and backed it up with supernatural authority and power, signs and wonders. That got him and all the disciples killed. And then if you're a pastor, there's nothing fun about that. And if you're a teacher, you're teaching correctly. But if you're an evangelist, you're basically running around teaching salvation through Jesus. It's not so much of a threat, because you're not necessarily talking to those that are in the church. They might be backslidden or non-believers. They'll just make fun of you. But it's a least threatening thing, in my opinion. But anyway, so the Extreme Tour, did you have something to say about that?
Oh, I was just going to say that I think it's funny because, like I said, I agree with you. The evangelism is definitely the easiest part, except for when the churches are telling you that you're doing it wrong.
Except for when the church gets involved.
Yeah. The church tells you, like the empty church.
Yeah. With
the bitter people in it, come out and tell you that you're doing it wrong.
It's just like kitchen nightmares.
Yeah, and then when you have I was thinking, like, the whole, thinking about the preaching and the apostle and the teacher and all that stuff. I literally, Ted and I were meeting last night, talking about, like, I'm stepping into a new role on the tour where I probably won't be out on the road this year.
Oh, wow.
I'll be out on the road just in a small capacity in the States, and then I'm doing all the overseas stuff. But one of the things you were talking about is when you have to do correction, or when you have to like you said it way more. You said it in a more direct way. We had to write down. I guess what I wrote was using judgment for correction as direction and training.
Angelo has more of a pastoral bent than I do. Let me explain again. So let me explain to these people, let me explain to the audience what it is we're talking about and who we're talking about. So this tour, the Extreme Tour, it travels around the country. It's been going on for a long time. I got involved in 2003, and
it was already 10 years old.
What's that?
It was already 10 years old.
Wow. Yeah. And that's crazy. And so it goes around the country, big cities, small towns, whatever. And I mean, you're playing everything from, you name it. And it's not necessarily always through a church, but 9 out of 10 times I'm going to say it's through a church. A church actually brings the tour in as an evangelistic tool for their community, and they're reaching out primarily to the disenfranchised youth in their city. The skate parks and stuff like that. And it's incredibly effective. And it's 100, and it works. I mean, it still goes on. I mean, God blesses it. I have my own testimonies regarding the effectiveness of this tour and God's hand and miraculous hand of provision, because the bands, no one's getting paid. And so these bands are getting paid, yet they have to somehow get from town to town, which is a Phil Keaggy song, by the way. They have to somehow get from town to town, and they're not getting paid because it's not like it's a tour, and it's not like it's not like these bands have an audience, national audience to begin with anyway. So it's not like they're showing up to a town where they have a ready-made scene or crowd, and it's not like the bands know where they're going until they get there, and on and on and on. I explained some of this in the book, and I don't know if you knew, I wrote a book called This Thing. Anyway, so all this stuff, right? And here's my favorite testimony about provision for a band. This young band, they were like fresh out of high school or still in high school. So they're like 17, 18, 19 years old. We had 2 cities going on somewhere in southern Idaho. They were supposed to go to city A and instead showed up to city B. And there's like 3 or 4 hours separation from the 2 cities. And they pulled into city B when they're supposed to be in city A on gasoline fumes. Young guys, they pull into city B on fumes and they're told, you're in the wrong city. You need to turn around and get back on the road and get to city A where you're supposed to be. So without complaining, which is your first clue that these guys have a clue, without grumbling or complaining, understand that what I just said, because when you grumble and complain about everything, you step out of any sort of you step out of God when you do that. I can prove it, 1 Corinthians 10. So, which is the premise of my next book. Anyway, the one I'm working on. So they, without complaining, they get back on the road and they start driving. They don't have any money and they don't have any gas, and they pull over to like some rest area. And if you've ever been in southern Idaho, there's nothing out there. You might as well be in Wyoming. And they're sitting there, sitting around a park bench, wondering what they're going to do. God, what are we going to do? We don't have any gas. We got to be at the next city. And all of a sudden they hear, Rabbi, the name of one of the fictitious band name of one of the band members. And there's this woman there with her family and her SUV with her husband and her kids who are on a road trip, just happen to stop by. And they know the band because they're from the same church from their hometown, thousands of miles away. And they're like, Mrs. Jones, another fictitious name. They're like, what are you doing out here? Well, we're on this tour and blah, 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 and we don't have any gas. This is a family from their home church 1,000 miles away. So they give them all their money. They get gas. They get to the show. This happened all the time. This happens all the time on the Extreme Tour. So this tour, it's impactful. It's effective. But here's what happens. You have people that are not actually a part of us. They're not actually one of us. They're imposters. They're saboteurs that are in bands that get involved with the Extreme Tour thinking it's going to help launch their career or some other nonsense like that. They show up in the tour. They realize what's really going on, even though they've been told from the very beginning. They have been sent documentation for weeks in advance that they're supposed to sign off on to say that they've read, and they do, but they don't read it, explaining and telling them everything we're telling you right now, but they don't read it. They don't actually know what's going on. They're not actually involved for any good intent. They're just self-serving. They show up, they find out what's going on. They find out, oh, we've been lied to, we've been deceived. You guys are whatever, and they get nasty.
Well, there's a reason for that though, I'll tell you what it is. Sometimes it's that. But I have a story, I think a lot of people, they like the stories of like traveling and being stranded, and then strangers give them like handfuls of money. Like people love that. And you know why they love that? Because it's the thing that they can be more faithful to than actual God, is the people handing them the money. If that makes sense, like that's a thing, like people love those stories. And I think those stories are great, don't get me wrong. But going back, because you were telling me that story, and I was like, man, I can think of all these times where like God's moved beyond money. And then as you were talking about these bands that come out that don't read stuff, we had a band, and I'll use their name because they would be totally okay with me looking it up. But this is also, I'm a little scared to mention their. Well, actually, I'll hold off on mentioning their name because I'm going to tell you the story first. But there was a band that came out, and they're probably from about like an hour or two from Nashville. And they got invited to the Extreme Tour, thought it was cool, liked everything online. They read the whole thing about the objective. They go to the objective and they come to the objective, and they sit there and they start hearing all of the things at the objective. Like, we're, made to be more than musicians. This is more than a career, like pursue a calling, all of the things that, we talk about, like, we were made to be warriors, like, follow Jesus, do this with your whole heart, like seeking and searching the lost. And then they got weird, and they ended up coming out on the tour. They went to the wrong city.
What do you mean they got weird?
Huh?
What do you mean?
I'll tell you. So check this out. So they get to the city. They're supposed to be meeting us in Salem, Oregon. They pull up to Eugene, Oregon. They're from Alabama, so they drove from Alabama to Eugene, Oregon, and they got there 3 days early and were literally sleeping in their van. So they meet up with us, and I'm going, these guys are going to be angry. Super nice, super sweet guys.
How come this sounds familiar?
They show up really nice. It's really cool. Long story short, about a week in to the tour, maybe I took that back. It's probably about 2 weeks into the tour, a week or two, whatever. It's irrelevant. They approached me and they're like, I'd like to talk to you. And I was like, okay. He goes, when we got the thing for the Extreme Tour, we were really excited. When we went to the Objective, we were really upset.
You were really upset
at the
Objective?
Yeah, they really took the Objective. They go, we felt like we were lied to. He goes, but then I had to go back and look at everything. He goes, when I got the thing for the Extreme, I was like, this is incredible. He goes, I went and showed my mother, and my mother was like, this is cool, baby. I've been praying for you to do something like this. And they were like, why? Like, this is what we want to do. She's like, no, the whole like mission outreach. And they were like, what are you talking about? They're like, it's all right there. Like in the email I just read there, she was like, no, we just go into small towns and inner cities, blah, blah, blah. So they get to the Objective, they hear all the Jesus talk, and they freak out. And they decided, well, we're already here. We might as well stick it out for the next 4 days. So they stick it out for the 4 days, and they decide that, you know what? It's not weird. It's not kooky. Everything they're saying makes sense. I want to go out and try this. So then they get out on the road. These guys are like straight up like Buddhist. Like they had like the palm with the mandala on it on tie-dye shirts is what their merch was when they showed up. Oh, and they weren't Christian. They neither one of them were raised in the church. Neither one of them. And they looked like, I mean, they looked like straight up, like, you know, one of them looked like Jack Sparrow, long dreads, you know, pretty, you know, face like the Edward Scissorhands did or whatever. I mean,
what guy looked like with dreads?
Huh?
The guy looked like with dreads, all pretty and stuff.
I don't know, but I'm talking like they looked good. No, I'm joking. No, but it was really cool. All this and that to say that, you know, he goes, he told me when it was done, he goes, I don't believe that God allowed me to see that when I first read it. He goes, I really believe that God hid it from my eyes so that I didn't read the straight up what it was, so that I could come out on the road and have this transforming moment that would forever change my life. Those guys are so, I mean, to see what God did in their lives is incredible. The most insane thing now this is where people are going to freak out, and forgive me if you know, I believe that God moves in really beautiful ways. So these guys, they asked, we were in one city going to another city. I think we were going from Prineville, Oregon to wherever on the coast, or vice versa, from the coast to Prineville, Oregon, from one side to the other. And the guys had asked, he goes, can we leave a night early so we can go camp out on the mountain? You know, when a couple of hippie dudes ask you that, you kind of assume that it's, you know, they're gonna go get high. They're gonna go smoke out, whatever they're gonna do. I don't know. And I was like, you know what, man? Like, I realized that we brought you to you guys showed up to the wrong city and then tried to meet up with us, and now we're traveling and you probably need to be alone. Well, they go to this, they leave. And this is, mind you, the next city that we're in, and they're telling me the story. And he goes, we went up and we were camping, and we started talking about this whole Jesus thing. And this is how hippie they are. He goes, I was sitting down. He goes, me and my friend, like me and my bandmate and this other guy from the tour, we were all sitting down. He goes, and we were, you know, meditating. We were, you know, cross-legged and, you know, the whole thing is we were sitting there meditating. And he goes, and I felt this voice that said, go be alone. And he goes, and I wasn't sure. He goes, but it was like, go be alone. Get out of the group. Go be alone. He goes, so I walked off to the side. I sat down in the grass, like down away from everybody else. And he goes, and I just said, God, if you're real, I need a sign to know that this is Jesus and not anything else. He goes, and as soon as I said that, I opened up my eyes and a butterfly landed on my fingertips. And for some reason that was symbolic to him. I forgot the reason why. He goes, and a butterfly landed, and I just knew Jesus was real. And then he goes, and then I heard him tell me, I want you to be a leader. He goes, and I'm not the leader of the band, but God told me he wants me to be a leader. And I was like, I felt really weird about it. So he goes, so I just sat there and meditated and prayed. Him and this butterfly having this conversation. He goes, so then I got up and I went back to where the guys were, and they had went away by themselves to go pray. And when he goes, when they came back, I asked them, where did you guys go? And they said, well, we were sitting there praying and you got up and left. And so we thought we should do the same. And I was like, so God's literally telling you what he wants you to do, showing you how he's already using you in the way that he wants to use you. And you're over here having a fight with him about his existence and what he's actually calling you to do. And you're already walking in it. And he was just like, yeah. So fast forward now, this is 3 years later, the dude's leading worship at his church. You know, he goes, I realized all the songs that we wrote already have. He goes, they already have a connotation for the scripture and for the spiritual. You know, these are guys that were truly seeking, they wanted something, you know, truth and freedom. And all they knew was about religion is what the Southern religion teaches them in the South, like, you know, just the cultural thing. And God is moving in their life. He called me a year later and was like, hey, I'm having a hard time sleeping at night. You know, like what is this thing about anointing your house with oil? What is it about praying? What is it about? Like we started talking about it. And so I just started telling him, I was like, everything that we do, it's all in the scripture, dude. I was like, let's go and let's pray over your house. So he's calling me going, you know, no more night terrors, no more being tormented. And he's really searching and seeking God. The band is called The Sun, the Moon. They're still searching, you know, they're still looking to try to figure out what it is that they're supposed to be doing. But it's like they're no longer chasing the dream of becoming famous musicians, because they found like the need and just being with Christ. Like he filled everything that they wanted, the harmony, the peace, the validation, whether that's with music or personal, like ambition, like everything that we say that we want in life. If God would just give me this, and this, then I can do this, and this for him. And he's going, if you just love me, I will meet every one of those needs, and you'll no longer have if a God just does this, and this, or I could just have, like, what does every artist say that they want out of becoming a musician? Oh, I just want enough to make it. I just want enough to support my family. You know, I just want to do it. And it's like, is God not enough? Like, is God not enough to support your family? Is God not enough for you to like make it? But anyway, that's a.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking about in my head while you're talking. We actually don't, as Christians, have a hard time really doing, and you know what it is that they say that they're all about. You know, Bill Johnson says there comes a time where there's at some point you are going to have to be convinced of your own salvation.
Yeah,
you know, because Christians they're just not Christian about the majority of what they do. You know, this whole Kanye West thing. You know, my favorite thing that happened about a month ago, it was in November. My favorite thing that happened in one day, you've got Kanye West at Joel Osteen's church. He speaks in the morning and does a concert at night. In one day, God used these two guys to bring the religious spirit of the church up to the surface and to be exposed.
Yeah.
I mean, and people are like freaking out. Well, Kanye's now with the wolves, you know, because Joel's a wolf. And I'm like, what do you mean he's a wolf? Again, these people have never really heard what Joel is actually teaching or preaching. They just don't like the guy.
And even still, okay, you think Joel Osteen's got some messed up theology? Cool. Guess what? So do you. So do I.
Yeah.
Because what does the scripture say? We only know in part, we only see in part.
Yeah. And we don't trust that God is big enough to manage Kanye West.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Kanye West is more than God can handle.
Yeah.
And it's like the same thing that happened. What's that?
I was like, it's what's worse is that people are upset that God didn't use them.
Well, I think a lot of it is jealousy. I'm jealous of Kanye's notoriety and money.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. I mean, otherwise, because if it's not that, then here's what they're saying. And this has come up before because of what my Rude Awakening interviews regarding this book, because I talked about this in June. I was on their show in June, And on their show, which aired in October, on this show, I literally say, your audience has a hard time with this message. If we were talking about the guy across the street, no problem. But when you start talking about celebrities, because I was talking about David Bowie and how the various times God has shown up in his life and his career that he wrote about, and people are manifesting, that's not my Jesus didn't show up to Bowie, literally. And they're like pulling their support from that ministry and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, people lose their mind.
Yeah.
That my Jesus didn't manifest himself to Bowie, blah, 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 blah. It's like, if we were talking about the guy across the street, no problem. But when you start talking about celebrities and something maybe as volatile as a David Bowie, and how when God visited him or God manifested himself to him and it showed up in a song lyric, or because, this did happen. But we had a hard time, like everybody else, with the exclusivity of Jesus. And I told them in the interview, I say they have a very hard time with that. Because we're talking about celebrities, so what are they saying? Either the celebrity is too demonic and the power of darkness is too powerful in them for God to show up, be able to do anything, or God doesn't love that person enough, or whatever. Which one is it? Because that's what you're saying.
Yeah, you're either saying you're saying God's not big enough,
or whatever.
God's not big enough. And I always tell people all the time, like, first of all, God uses whoever he wants.
And he can do whatever the heck he wants.
He used my whole thing is, God used an ass, and sometimes I feel like I am that living proof.
Right.
that's me. And that could be anybody, whoever you want to put in that classification of that guy's an ass, donkey, literal or figuratively. He can use whoever he wants. He says, if we don't, the rocks will cry out. But God's not big enough, right? Like God will use the rocks, but he can't use an evil man. He can't use, a president or a former president or, a future president or anybody that we don't think God will use. Yet he constantly says, I use the foolish to confound the wise.
Here's what's interesting. The MO of people that think like that, they barely leave the house. It's not like they're not actually out there hustling. They're not actually out there, telling people about Jesus and laying hands on people and praying for them. You know what I'm saying? They barely leave the house. But they're the most judgmental about those of us who are actually out there doing something about something. It's almost as if they have to bitch about something at all times just to feel alive or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's bizarre. It's ugly and it's demonic. And that's why I think, I've been around the Extreme Tour and 17 years. I helped launch the Objective, blah 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 blah. So but I'm not like core. I'm core staff, but you know what I'm saying. I'm not there with you guys, 24/7. So I get an outer peripheral view of things, and I think a lot of times what happens is I know for a fact a lot of what goes on around the Objective and the Extreme Tour and you and Ted we mentioned his name before. He's the one that started the Extreme Tour out of Southern Idaho. It's in my book. I put the link already. And it's a lot of spiritual attack because it is an actual legitimate ministry that is changing people's lives. People are coming to Jesus. And not only are people coming to Jesus, people that are backslidden, like a lot of these band guys, they're in bands trying to become rock stars that have walked away from God. And this Jesus stuff isn't necessarily new. They've just got, there's all these different dynamics. They're either totally 100%, I don't know anything about God, or backslidden, or just religious. And what we tell them, how we tell them, what they experience on the tour or at the Objective is changing these people's lives, and the enemy can't stand it. Because I think you understand what I mean by this, I think the enemy has a strong grip on the entertainment industry because it's too close to home. Entertainment, the arts, spiritually.
Music, music itself. You talk about jealousy. You know, I mean,
Oh, he's pissed.
literally running off of a memory, you know, like everything. And that's, sorry, I have not read your book yet. And I'm sure you.
What? Oh, that's it. We're done. Okay, I can't. You know, if you're a guest on my show and you haven't read my book,
that you've even written a book, because you never talk about it. But you know, it's like the whole like he has no ability, you know, like anymore. Literally running off a memory, no longer has that power, you know, running off
the enemy.
Counterfeit.
Are we talking about the enemy?
Huh?
We're talking about the enemy?
Yeah. The enemy is everything, that all the music that's, you know, the devil music or whatever, that is the popular good selling that everybody strives to do, is literally a counterfeit of what he used to do. He no longer has that ability, but has a memory and goes, oh yeah, I think you know, this is the things that God loved, and he's created these people in his image. So let me influence these people in his image, because I remember what it was like. And they're not necessarily God, but they're, you know, that reassembling these melodies and these things, you know, from memory. And people are going, wow, this is very moving. So it's literally a counterfeit of the original thing. And then you have God's people going, well, what should we do? Well, what's the world responding to? And they're literally making a counterfeit of a counterfeit and wondering why it has no power. You know, when we have direct access to the source, you know. And so these people are literally out there, like, and that's, in my opinion, why, you know, the stuff that we think is horrible Christian music is because it's literally copying a counterfeit. Yeah. And it's like if I'm gonna counterfeit $100 bill, I'm not gonna start with somebody else handing me a counterfeit. You know, I'm gonna go to the real thing. So that's the whole thing. I'm just like, I don't get it, man. Like, I that's the thing. I don't want to listen to, you know, nonsense. It's just crazy. And these bands come all the time, and you're like, oh, we're like the Christian version of. Ugh. And I'm like, cool. You know, I guess, I don't know.
That's the objective. That's my biggest nightmare, is dealing with these Muppet musicians. You've seen it.
Yeah, but you know, I think the truth is they just, people are, and I will give them credit in this. There are those that are so desperate to reach the lost, and they really are. I've seen a lot of bands that are like, I want to reach somebody. So I'll tell you this. So
you see how pastoral Angelo is?
Well,
and he just threw me under the bus. Allan, these people want to reach the lost. So
let me tell you,
you're making fun of them.
No, I mean, yes, but no. Like, the thing is these people they really are desperate. They have no other, like, they have no idea, and they're like, what can I do? You know, and they're like, well, people really like hearing the words, sweet child of mine, you know, and they're like, so I'm going to sing sweet Jesus of mine. So, and literally, and I think, you know, I'm like, that's so horrible. They're literally making like parody songs, but.
Well, man, there was a band that did that out of Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So there's a family that did it not too far from here, and we brought them out on the road just because they were young kids, and we watched them, and it was really, it was cringy to watch. But I will say this, older people that were drunk would hear the song and come running, and they would stop and listen, and they would see these kids singing it, and something happened there. And that's why I said God can use anything and anyone.
Even a Freebird solo?
Yeah. Stop! I'm not even talking about them.
You're not, but I am. I just brought them up.
Okay, so
this is what we're talking about. So we should probably tell them. Go to www. I'm just kidding.
I was like, don't. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
And I will tell you this too. Another thing that I'm learning in Christian musicians, I say Christians in general, anybody doing Christian media, Christian music, Christian writing, Christian, any arts, you know, any of the arts. And I say, if they're pursuing that, because a lot of people ask me, like, what's the advice that you would give me, you know? And there's two pieces of advice that I'm giving to people now, just off the front. And I'm like, the one is easy. Don't don't pursue a career, pursue a calling. And they're like, yep, that's what I'm doing. I'm called to do this. I was like, and then the other one is, just remember that you don't get to choose how God uses you. And they just kind of stop and look. I was like, just that's it. Like, you don't get to choose. So like, whatever you think, like whatever your ambition is, whatever, like just let it go and pursue Christ. That's it. Like, pursue everything that he has for you. He's going to use you how he wants to use you. You know, release your mixtapes, release your albums, release your books, and know that you're just being obedient to what God tells you to do. If you're being obedient to what God tells you to do, then you have nothing to worry about at all, you know? But if you're still holding on to these little pieces of you where you haven't surrendered, then God just lets you hang on to him and can't give you what he has because you won't let go of, like, I can't receive something with a closed fist, you know? And so I just tell people, like, you cannot choose how God uses you. And they're like, but God already told me I'm going to speak to millions of people in front of kings and queens of the nation. And that God spoke that word over me. And I'm like, oh, okay, like, what is that? Like, you believe it's going to be millions. And then, you know, the thing that Ted told me that I always hear him say to artists, he's like, you know, what if it's 10 at a time? You know, like, what if it's 10 at a time? Like, you could still speak to millions. What if it's 10 at a time? You know, are you willing to do that? And I'm just like, yeah, I don't care what I'm doing as long as I'm being obedient. Like, what are you judging your success by?
Those words are so difficult. And here's what I mean by that. We were somebody we both know. I think you know them anyway. They know what they're talking about. So it's a vetted source. They had two dreams about us when we were doing ministries walking, and we saw you playing in front of thousands of people. You guys were like a household word, you know, household name. And these words came out, and so we would, you know, yeah, you know. And this is like a year before God told us to stop touring. So how does that, you know, there's that balance, you know, or how does that make sense? And it always reminds me whenever someone says that, like what you just said, it always reminds me of this woman in Dallas that I knew, a little younger than me. So let's say she's in her 50s, late 40s. And we were her husband played drums with the worship band or something like that. So they were part of the church we went to. But I was over at their house for some reason. I don't know. And for some reason, she tells me that when she was a teenager, God told her she was going to be the next Amy Grant. How many times have we heard that? Mm-hmm. Right? God told this woman, she's telling me this, that when she was a teenager, that God told me I was going to be the next Amy Grant. And so I left it alone. I didn't say anything. Nothing. I didn't do what I would normally do, what you've seen me do a gazillion frickin' times. And here's what I wanted to do, but I didn't do it. And that's ask him the next question that would follow that. What happened? Because she never became the next Amy Grant. One of two things happened, or maybe three. But one, either it wasn't God, and so that's why it didn't happen. And so now you have to reevaluate what you think the voice of God sounds like, because it wasn't God, because you never became the next Amy Grant. You've seen these conversations I have with you like a zillion times. Or God did speak and you dropped the ball.
Yeah.
What didn't you do to position yourself to be the next Amy Grant? Because, right, the majority of Christians out there don't believe that they're actually supposed to be doing something because it's works. The W word, you can't say works, right?
Well, I tell you what they really don't want to do. It's not that they're caught up about the works. It's that nobody actually wants to work.
Right. Exactly. They're lazy ass. Right.
The thing where it says in scripture to study to show yourself approved. You know, like nobody wants to go out there and work the field. Nobody wants to, like, it doesn't happen. Nobody wants to thresh. I mean, everybody just wants to sit back and go, God. And on top of that, everybody wants to be so freaking special.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many times I've talked to staff members, to band members, to church members, to ministers who said, I'm just waiting to hear a word from God. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, what you want to hear a word from God? Did you open the scripture and read? And they're like, no. I want my own word from God. And I'm like, he's giving you his entire word from God.
Yep. See, this is awesome. This is why when I started doing these interviews, I didn't think a lot of people were going to understand why, because I'm bringing non-Torah people in. I brought a Episcopalian priest in last week, right? People that, you know. So Lynn is saying, thank you. I received this as a painter. She prayed to hear from Yah today. Liz, listen very carefully to what we're about to say and what we're talking about right now, because this is key. And this is, I think, a prophetic key for you, Lynn. All right. We're talking about if God does speak, what are you doing, right? And this is I'm going to flesh this out in my next book about acknowledgement, alignment, activation, agreement, right? All that stuff, because people don't understand that if God did tell you that you're supposed to be the next Amy Grant, he either did or he didn't. Either way, you didn't end up being the next Amy Grant. And I know God he's not going to, it's on you. You either didn't hear from God or you did and you dropped the ball. Noah heard from God. He didn't just sit around and wait for the rain to start. He had to go build the ark. He had to go do the work of walking in the prophetic word that God had for him, which was to build the ark to save mankind. But he had to actually get up off his duff and do something, right? In the same way, Abraham had to literally physically walk the boundaries of the land, of the promised land. He had to physically do that act of walking. I mean, we can do this all freaking day long. Jonah had to go to Nineveh. You know, Jesus had to allow himself to be killed and crucified. Moses had to go. He spent 40 years tending sheep to learn how to be a shepherd, so he could go tend the most stiff-necked people for another 40 years. I mean, this goes on. Joseph had to understand. Shave me. It's not about being a Hebrew right now. It's about being an Egyptian, so I can interpret the Pharaoh's dream, so I can become second Pharaoh. I mean, so if God does speak to you about something, what are you doing to acknowledge and align yourself with that word in order for it to come to pass? There has to be agreement.
And what happens? Here's the thing, though. Like you know, I like Joseph because God revealed to Joseph very early what was going to happen. You know, and he got really excited about it, and then was sold into slavery. And I think about that, and I go, how many times do God reveals himself to us, and the first thing he does is puts us in a comfortable situation, and we go, screw this, I'm out. I'm done. Like, this is not what God called me to. God did not call me to a life of discomfort.
Oh.
I mean, it's like, okay. You know, I mean, I literally had people say, if God called me to this, it would be easy.
Oh, man, it's insane. I mean, so I'm thinking of a word that I got a prophetic word in 2008. I had just got back from Israel. God had just told me to do ministries walking. I had to shut down my very lucrative business to do that, which was very difficult. But in 2008, I got the following word right after getting back from Israel, after understanding, oh, I'm supposed to turn off, shut down my business and go back into music ministry, full-time ministries walking. I got a prophetic word from my then pastor's son, who was leading worship at the time. He gets the prophetic word while he's playing guitar. Anyway, it's a long story. But the prophetic word was, hey, I saw you surrounded by thousands of CDs, teaching tapes, and books. This is like 12 years ago. And I'm like, I was able to make an alignment and agreement with that word, right? Because there has to be agreement in order for it to come to pass. That's very key. That's very important to understand. Otherwise, that prophetic word gets lost in prophetic cyberspace or something. So he says, surrounded by thousands of teaching tapes, CDs, and books. I understood and grasped that for ministries walking, but I didn't enter into the fullness of that prophetic word until about 2 or 3 years ago when I put this out. Because I'm writing books now, and the teaching tapes are like this. This is teaching tapes nowadays, and what I do on YouTube and what I do on the video.
Well, it's funny you said that. So, like, I've been fighting, and we've actually been talking about this. The difference between.
That was 12 years ago.
Yeah, talking about the difference between wrestling before God and wrestling with God. being raised around, religion and in the church and seeing different craziness, like whether it's, Pentecostal, Baptist, whatever, somebody told me at a really young age, like, you're going to be a preacher. And I was like, I remember saying, F that. Like, I don't know. I'll never be a pastor. I'll never do that. It's nothing that I want. It's nothing that I want in my life. I can't stand being in church. I don't it's the ADD is real bad for me. And then joining up with the Extreme Tour as a musician, like, this is what I want to do. God is like, I don't care what you want to do, and then I started realizing the whole delighting yourself in all of my ways, and I will give you the desires of your heart. I used to think, okay, as long as I keep doing what God wants me to do, then I will get all of the material things that I'm seeking. The money, the house, the cars, just all these crazy things. So what I realized is, no, what happens is when you delight yourself in all of your ways and all of his ways, your desires change. My desires become his desires. They're no longer even my desires. Yeah. I'm not even it's not even my thing, so I'm just realizing, like, surrender and obedience and what it means to give up, like to make myself a slave to him, to understand what that means. And I realized that the enemy spent all of these years trying to program these evil words
and pervert.
Obedience is bad. Sheep, you're going to be a sheeple. You're going to be, obey, little soldier. Like, it's like, no, God's like, those are things, that's the things that God's called us to do. And so it's just crazy. So the thing is, like, I never wanted to be a pastor. Now God's put me in this position of pastorship where I don't have a church. I don't have to show up. I don't have to dress up or anything like that. It's kind of great. But I get to pastor and lead bands, and I get to pastor and lead staff, and I get to pastor and, like, along with, my best friends, and we're watching God do these beautiful, beautiful, incredible things. I dig it, man. I love it so much. I love that I'm living this life of fullness and joy that I even sometimes forget to acknowledge, just because I surrendered. And I'm living and doing these things that I never thought I wanted to do. Like, I would have never thought that I'm Texas boy through and through, me. I purposefully did not wear my Texas jacket because I knew that people would say something about it, because it literally has Texas patches all. And I'm just like, I love Texas. I am born and raised Dallas. Texas. I literally have my neighborhood tattooed around my neck. Like, I am that ghetto whatever,
There you are.
I love my city that I grew up in, and I never ever in a million years thought that the words out of my mouth is Tennessee. Middle Tennessee is home. Like, where I am right now is where God has brought me, and I see myself being here because God is putting this thing in me that's changing, and he's going, you're going to go where I want you, and you're going to do what I want you to do. And I'm living this life that is absolutely insane because it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah,
this has nothing to do with me. And the beautiful thing about that is all I have to do is be obedient, but the pressure isn't actually on me. There's no actual pressure on me to have, like, we put all this self-imposed pressure because we're so afraid of what people are going to think. And here's the thing. I had this breakdown like a week ago, just being completely honest, completely transparent. We moved into a new house. We're working on it day and night. We're, getting it ready. And I say new house, this new house it's basically 3 units that are in one area. And I was working day and night, 15 hours a day. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm doing this unto the Lord. I'm doing this unto the Lord. I'm doing this unto the Lord. And I was like, why is there no joy? Why is there no strength? Why is there no peace? Why do I feel burnt out on both ends? And I realized because for 2 reasons. One, I was doing it in my strength, not in God's, and the other is that I wasn't even doing it for him. I had to reevaluate myself. I wasn't even doing it for me. I was doing it to protect, the history of staff that's turned over, come and gone, the things we've been through, So I was doing it to protect the reputation of our tour, to protect the reputation. It's the same thing when we book cities and we do all this stuff, and we're like, if we get down to it, we don't really care what people think about God. We care what people think about us. our ministry, what people think about our books, what people think about our writings and our sayings and our albums and it was just like, God was like, you can worry about all that all you want, but you and your book and your writings are not is not what people are responding to. They're responding to him, to his word. They're responding to like that. That is who they are responding to, not us. If you're 100%, everybody says, I just want people to look at me and see Jesus. Do you really? Because that means that people will not remember you. And are you okay with living in obscurity?
Yep.
For his sake. Can I tell you one of the greatest things, like one of my greatest things, and I love it because I realized how upset I got and also how at peace I became. So we pray this thing all the time. It's not a vain repetition prayer. It's a really heartfelt prayer. I pray and I say, God, when we go into cities, I was like, if we say anything that comes from our flesh, let it be taken from their memories, because I would much rather be completely forgotten than misrepresent who you are.
Yeah. Now
get this. 3 years ago, we were in a city somewhere in Wisconsin and met this kid out on the street. We had this long life talk about God and seeking him and what it is and like what this thing is. And we had this talk. And so I brought him to I was like, hey, these are the people who are local. Like, we don't believe in creating spiritual orphans. We want to go out and say, hey, I met you here. Here's a church you can get connected to. Here's a community you can be a part of. So I introduced this kid with a long conversation to the pastor. We have this long talk. The kid joins the church, becomes a part of it, is showing up year after year. This last summer, we went just this past, a few months ago, we were in this town again. And the guy came up to me and he was like, hi, my name is so-and-so. And I was like, dude, it's so good to see you again. And he was like, oh, have you been here before? And I was like, yeah, like I introduced you to all this, And he was like, huh? And I was like, yeah. I was like, you came to the Extreme Tour like 3 years ago. He was like, yeah, I did. It was really cool. Like God really changed my life. And I was like, yeah, don't you remember us talking? And he was like, I don't. And at first I was like, well, screw you, dude. You ungrateful little turd. And then I was like, no, that's beautiful. I was not in the equation at all. Like when I left, when I removed myself from the situation, they weren't thinking about my words. They weren't thinking about the encounter with me. They weren't thinking about my website, my Instagram, my Facebook, my whatever. They were thinking about Christ, and they came into community. And because they came into community, like, God is transforming their life. And I think that's beautiful. Like if that means that people don't remember me, fantastic. The beauty of living in obscurity means that there is no pressure on me to do anything but be obedient to what God called me to. And knowing that he's going to meet my every need, walking with that kind of faith. And I say that for those of you watching, you may not know this, but I have no job. And you might think, oh, missionaries get support. I have no support. I take that back. About $150 to $200 a month is what I get in support. Traveling all over the world, $200 a month. And I'm married to a woman with student loans. So when I tell you we live by faith, we live by faith. Something we say, and it's true, is that we see God move every day in our lives because we have to. Do you put yourself in a position to see God move in your life? Or do you put yourself in a position to be God's move? Or waiting for or do you try to replace God's move? I have to depend on God. Like I do. There's times where I get offered jobs for money and I have to turn them down because of the commitment that I've made for the ministry that I'm in. Right. I'm talking good money, but it's not better than what God is providing. Like if I walked you around this house and you understood how little we have turned this thing around on, you'd be like, there's no way. There are people to this day, even who come to the Objective, who are like, there's money somewhere. And I'm like, there's not.
Right. Yeah. They actually, it's really weird. We have a question. Do you and the band do a lot of praying and fasting being out on the road?
Yes. We do. So one thing, there's a couple of things that we do for prayer. First of all, something that we do that a lot of other tours don't do, Christian or otherwise, is tour Bible studies. You know where I saw the first tour Bible study my whole entire life? Mind you, I've been touring for 30 years, started in the 90s. Early 1990 was the year that I went on tour as a child with Christian bands. And the first place that I ever saw a Bible study on tour was the Warped Tour.
The Warped Tour.
The Warped Tour was the first place I ever saw a Bible study amongst bands.
Do you remember the band?
I believe I forget which one started it, but I know that like Emery and those guys like that, they were like part of it. I don't think they were the ones that hosted it though. Shoot, I'm trying to remember. That was 2004. And they were really cool. I mean, they weren't really deep, you know, but they were just like, it was the first time I'd ever seen it. So something that doesn't exist in the music industry on Christian or is spiritual care, like, or otherwise. There's no spiritual care. People don't care about the mental well-being, the mental stability, like they don't care about any of that. Like their labels don't give a rip. I think they're starting to now because mental health is like a hot button issue now. But as far as the so we do a Bible study in every single city that we go to. We will have a Bible study. So I think we did like 45 cities on the West Coast and 45 or 47 cities on the East Coast. A Bible study was done in every single one of those cities. When it comes to fasting, our staff we'll fast together, like as a staff. A lot of times because the bands don't understand that concept just yet. Like it's taking a lot for them just to go out on the road and leave their house for 2 weeks and leave, you know, so I tell them to fast and pray before they come out, you know, like there's different like levels, you know, I think you can fast as a church, you can fast as a staff, you can fast as a pastor, as an individual. But there's times where we tell our staff, hey, we're going to fast today. You know, we're going to fast today. We're going to make sure that we get the team going and then we're going to leave and we're going to have our time of prayer. But we definitely, because just like in the scripture, when those guys come back and said, hey, we laid hands, we even said, you know, in the name of the Father, like, and nothing happened. Like, why not? He's like, because you like prayer and fasting. We understand that on like a very real level. When we're out on the road, I'm talking cars breaking down, cities dropping, pastors coming in and unpulling the cords and telling you to leave in the middle of the night because, you know, one of your guys was wearing a t-shirt that had a skull on it. I don't know who in their right mind would show up to a church wearing a skull on their shirt, but it happens.
Especially those guys that have skulls tattooed on them. What are they thinking?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I mean, those are the type of things. So like prayer and fasting, it's a really big deal. Like there's some things that only break in those moments, you know? And it's because, and I believe all of that. I believe that the heartache, the frustration, God will do things beyond money. He does these things that it's him. So, you know, we tell those stories of, you know, being in the middle of nowhere and God, you know, brings a stranger to you to give you money so that you can make it to the next city. You know, in 2005, I was on a dream tour and we were in Rochester, Minnesota, and we were finishing up, I guess, that part of the tour, and we were transporting down to Oklahoma. And I remember I had $20. And I had to drive from Rochester, Minnesota to Blackwell, Oklahoma, and we didn't have anything. I asked, nobody had anything. I even asked Ted, the founder, and he was like, Ted gave me $20. So I had $40 now, $40 to get from Rochester, Minnesota to Blackwell, Oklahoma. I remember thinking, man, forget this, dude, I'm done with this tour. I told all the skaters, I was like, we're going to drive until we run out of gas. Once we run out of gas, I'm going to stop the car. We're going to busk. I'm going to rap and freestyle on the side of the road, and you're going to do skate tricks, and we're going to collect money, and then we're going to take our butts back to Texas, and we're done with this tour. And so we're driving, and the little digital thing tells you how many miles to empty. You know, I think it was like 240 miles to empty. in the van. And so we're driving, and then one of the guys who's a skater goes, "Hey, I've never really been able to drive before. I just got my license and came out on tour. Can I drive?" And I was like, "Sure." I was tired, didn't sleep for a couple of days. He gets in the van, and I'm telling him, just keep it under 55, keep those RPMs low. We'll make the gas stretch. I was like, and then wake me up when it says 20 miles to empty. And he was like, okay. So I get in the back of the van, I pass out and fall asleep. And I wake up and it's nighttime and the van is shaking and the back windows that vent open are going, brrr, they're flapping and everything's just shaking. And I look up and all I can see on the digital dash, 101 miles an hour on the dashboard. Like he's driving at 100 miles an hour. And I'm, what are you doing? Stop the car, blah, blah, blah. And so he's like, I've been driving. You told me when it got to 20 miles to empty to pull over. And so he pulls over and he said, I've been driving. He goes, it got to 25 miles to empty. So I figured I'll floor it and we'll drive 100 miles an hour until it gets to 20 miles to empty. And I was like, how long have you been driving like that? He goes, 5 hours. Or maybe it was 4 hours. It was hours. He was driving at almost 100 miles an hour, fluctuating between there. And he goes, it's been stuck. He goes, it's barely at 21 miles to empty. So I was like, there's no way. I was like, you didn't stop the gas? He's like, no. So he pulls over. And mind you, we were going to go home. We were done with the tour, right? And it says here, 10 miles to empty. You know, now like he's over 10 miles to empty. We pull up. I was like, take the next exit. He pulls up, 10 miles to empty. The sign in front of us says something like, you know, Dallas, you know, however many 100 miles to Dallas, to Texas, and then this way to Stillwater, and this way, and then it said 11 miles to Blackwell, Oklahoma. And I was like, crap. And I was like, what if Louie who was with us, who wasn't a Christian, just looked at me and goes, if you don't go to Blackwell, you're effing retarded. I don't want to say that word because it feels like a bad word now, but he goes, you're effing the R word. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, let's go. So we pull up, and as we're pulling into town, we pull up to our host home, right? We pull up to the host home, and this guy had no idea who was going to stay with him. He just wanted us to stay there. He comes running outside, and he goes, are you the van with all the skaters in it? And I was like, yeah. He goes, I was sitting in my living room, and God told me to tell you this. And I go, what? And he hands me an envelope, and he goes, in this envelope is enough money for you to go home. You can go home right now, or you can finish out this tour. God said it's up to you.
Dude, you're so screwed at this point.
And I'm just sitting there staring at this envelope, and I open it up. There's $250 in it, and I just close it. And I was like, well, we're already here, you know. And so we finished out the tour. We did Blackwell, we did Oklahoma City, we did Oklahoma City. Then after Oklahoma City, we did Dallas, and then after Dallas, we did Austin.
What year was this?
That was 05. That was when you came out.
That's when I saw you in Dallas.
Yeah, Spyglass. That's when you joined us with Spyglass out there. But that had just happened. I just got into this huge, much longer story. But I believe God does these things where He shows us it's Him, and He works outside of our reality. Because He's like, if I would have just gone home, you would have taken what I gave, and you still would have done what you wanted to do with it.
And I think we probably had,
you know.
And when I saw you in Dallas, I'm pretty sure we had that conversation about submission and giving in and blah, blah, blah.
And here's the thing. I believe at that very moment where God said, where that guy came out and gave me the money, He goes, you can take this and go home, or you can stay. It's your choice. I believe at that very moment is where I would have decided whether or not God was going to use me for this thing for the rest of my life.
Right. This
I would have gone home. God would have said, cool. Now I can, like, if you don't want what I've given you, I will now find someone else.
Yeah. It's alignment.
You can go home, drive, and be faithful, and do whatever you want to do. But like, if I'm calling you to do something, it's, once again, we can pursue a calling or we can pursue a career. You know, we don't get to decide how God uses us. So if you want to decide how God's going to use you, cool. Just be prepared to be fighting with Him or being left alone or forgotten for forever. You know, my dad is about to leave town. My dad's been here since like a week before Thanksgiving, helping me work on this house, and he's heading back to Dallas today, and then he's going to he lives in San Antonio now, but he's going back to Dallas today, and I see him pulling his car around. I hope he doesn't leave without saying goodbye. Sorry, no ADD, but anyway, that's a thing. It's just like, yeah, I'm learning once again submission, obedience, and God, it's so crazy. It's so crazy.
That's not ADD. You just saw your dad and he's leaving and you need to see him before he leaves. That's not ADD. Don't say that over yourself, dumbass.
Yeah. Well, I think he's packing his car up, so I have time. Okay, cool. I know he will leave without saying goodbye, but sometimes he tries to. You know, fathers from Dallas, fathers from the inner city in Dallas, they're just gonna.
I was in Dallas 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I know. I'm so jealous, man.
And I saw this really nice house, 2-story house. Did you see the pictures and the video of it?
Oh yeah, no, I didn't see the pictures of the video, but I did comment on your thing. I was like, write that vision down.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So I saw this really nice 2-story house for rent, for lease, for office space, literally walking distance to Bishop Arts District. I mean, you could literally walk to Cafe Brazil.
Nice.
And Christine and I sat there in front of it for about, I don't know, 45 minutes going.
It'd be so, I just think it would be funny, and I love it. But, you were in Dallas for 18 years and you hated it. And then you finally were like, I like this place. And then he moved you to Utah.
It took me a while to like it, but it took me a while to submit to being there.
Yeah.
But literally when God said, I remember coming back from tour, and it's 2012, coming back from tour, and I'm on my deck, my beautiful big backyard in Dallas, and I'm like praising God and thanking him for my life and for making all his promises that he promised me the day he told me to stay there, how they all came true. And I'm just thanking him. I'm so glad I live here versus, brown shirt, California. And, I'm just thanking him for my life and for being in Dallas and blah, 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 blah. And he goes, okay, you can leave now. And I'm like, but I don't want to go.
Yeah. Like I said, man, I never in a million years would have ever thought that I would be like, so to be honest with you, like when I moved to Tennessee 6 years ago, I spent the first 2 years in a basement. I was so depressed that I had to leave Dallas. I only made like 1 or 2 friends. One of them is actually here now. He messaged me. He pulled up while we were doing this. He's like, can I come in? I was like, yeah, hang out in the living room. Like one of my closest friends, really great musician. Like we just get to hang. Like I would have never thought that this is where I wanted to be and like where I wanted to be home at. And I'm just learning that it doesn't matter. It's so stupid because you read the word and you don't realize, like, it's true. We say it's true. We hold it to be all these things or whatever, but when it's just like learning to be content in all things is like, that only comes from submission and surrender. I can be content with not having a job. I don't even have a bank account. My wife does, but she knows better than to put me on it. But like I don't, like I really don't. Like I never had a bank account because I never knew that like on the first of the month that $7 bank fee would not, be there or whatever. And I'd be in debt because of bank fees. But like learning to surrender.
How long have you and Kim been married?
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years?
Yeah.
Already?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
That's awesome.
I know.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Probably about a year and a half since somebody told me they were going to send me my water bottle. I've been having to drink from a cup like a peasant for the last 3 months. Anyway.
I saw it. When last time we talked about it, I saw it. I have to find it again.
I know. I mentioned it last time also. You're like, I'm going to send it to you. I think even afterwards you texted me. You're like, what's the address?
Haven't you told Corin to send it to you too?
Well, Corin is the one who found it. And he was the first one who said, I will send it to you. And then And then 2 weeks later, he was like, I haven't sent it yet. LOL. I was like, no problem. And then 2 weeks after that, you were like, hey, we have your water bottle. I'm going to send it. I was like, cool. And then
That's like 5 months ago.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, you know what? I'll find it and put it in an Amazon box, an empty Amazon Hanukkah gift box.
Right. Oh man.
So so your bank account, you don't have a bank account.
Yeah, I don't have steady income. Like I don't but good Lord, I'm not in need of anything. We're always going to be in want because we're fleshly people and we have, dumb little things like the holidays coming up. I really wanted to I'm a very extravagant giver, and my wife is a very practical giver. And this year I did, I don't have any money, I cried because somebody took us to breakfast and then left and said, I think you and your wife need a breakfast date. I'm getting choked up thinking about it. Because he was like, I see you working nonstop, and I just think you and your wife need to have a breakfast date. So here's some money, goodbye, and they left. And it was one of the sweetest things. It literally caught me off guard, and I just wept at a Cracker Barrel table. I just sat there and I was like, cool. But I am this extravagant giver, but all I've been doing is just working on the house. We moved into a house that was just studs and a bathroom, just studs. The bathroom was just wood boards, wood floor, it's just the whole house was kind of in disrepair. And so we've been working day and night on it, which means that I haven't been able to do my side jobs. I pick up a lot of side jobs and a lot of other things, and I haven't been able to do any of that. But God's been blessing us. Somebody else, my wife and I, we pulled the bed out of our RV. We pulled the queen size bed out of the RV and threw it on the floor to sleep on. And I was like, I'll get a bed eventually. Somebody bought us a bed, a king size foam mattress box from Amazon was on our front porch, as a gift from somebody. It was really sweet, man. Overwhelming things, so I spent a day building a bed. I literally built a bed from scratch, with wood and lumber. I'm master at habbing old stuff. I literally go drive around and look for trash and make furniture out of it. And I could show you some of that stuff at another time. Maybe I'll send you pictures or whatever. But it's just been really, really humbling. Where God's like, yeah, He goes, even like I said, I was all worked up about I can't do this, I can't do that, and somebody gave my wife an eye exam because I was I want to get my wife an eye exam because she likes practical gifts and she hasn't had new glasses in 4 years. It's I want to get her an eye exam. Somebody got her an eye exam. Actually, there's a guy who used to help at the Objective who's now an eye doctor who was I'll cover it. Don't even worry about it. He took care of it. We didn't even know it was him. So God's just been doing these really these things to where just following Him and submitting to Him is our every need, and then He gives us desires on top of that, and the way that He blesses is so beyond our ways. We don't even see it, we don't really understand it. But once you start obeying God and once you just start submitting to that, there's this real. It's it's the whole denying yourself. It's the living backwards thing, dying so He can live through me. There's so many different everything in there, but there's this exchange that happens to where it's if you do it so that He will meet your needs, if you're doing it for, it's kind of bad, good and bad. I guess it's just relationships, the good and bad relationships. If you're in a relationship for sex, it's going to be a horrible relationship. But if you're in a really good relationship, a married relationship, please understand what I'm saying. Then you're going to have but it's not the reason you get, what I'm saying? It's a byproduct, and that's the thing is it's in following God, He's given me this really amazing life that it's not the reason I follow Him. I'm not following Him for the benefits of it. I used to I used to pose the question to pastors because I was very confrontational with churches and churchgoers, and I like to just kind of be annoying. But I would tell pastors, I would be like, so if you removed the threat of hell and you removed the promise of heaven, is God worth serving? You know? And of course, there's a lot of that's a very loaded, hard question. But I think my thing is like, if it wasn't for the benefit, like if you remove the pros and cons of this, like just the fact that there's a God that loves you, that's it, you know? But once again, that's a very, like, that question was created to cause frustration in people and make them wrestle with stuff. I think about that, like loving God because he first loved us. And I know that sounds like a hippie, like, you know, new age thing or whatever, but it's like, no, I mean, literally, like God is who he is. And I don't care if I'm living. So, okay. I really admired my parents' relationship growing up. You know, they're no longer married. That's another story. But growing up, I remember my mom and dad telling me how, like, my dad was working at the airport, like building the airport, like he was a contractor, and they didn't have a lot of money. And my mom would ride the train around DFW, you know, while they were working on it, and they would spend all day, and they would sleep in the car with my little brother, with my older brother. They would all, you know, that's how they were living. I remember asking, I was like, how could you do that and not go crazy? And my mom used to say, as long as I had your father, as long as we were together, I knew we were going to be okay. It didn't matter where we were. We can't even be like that with God. Like, we have all these freaking stipulations on what it takes to follow and serve him, you know? And I want that with him. I'm like, I don't care where I am. Literally was sleeping in an RV, I've slept in the car, my wife and I've slept in the van, you know. Now we're in this ridiculously incredible house, you know. But it's like, I don't care if it's Tennessee, Texas, wherever it is, you know. Like, as long as I have God, I'm okay. I don't have anything to worry about. As long as you're being obedient to what God has called you to, you have literally nothing to worry about. Doesn't mean you're not going to worry. It just means that you don't have to. You don't have to. You know, he will provide and meet your every need. So that's just what and that only comes when you surrender. It only comes when, you know, you understand that. You know, what it means to be obedient is just, it's really hard to be obedient. It is. It's easier said than done. It's hard to walk by faith and not by sight. You know, it's hard. And, you know, but you know what's harder? You know what's really harder is trying to finish in the physical what started in the spiritual. Because guess what? It's freaking impossible. You cannot finish in the physical what God has started in the spiritual. Like, it's just, they're two different realms, and they're going to counterbalance each other. But the spiritual can very much affect the physical.
Right.
But the physical can't affect the spiritual. You know.
Not in a good way. It can affect it in a bad way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. We need to be in alignment. I mean, we need to understand, we need to acknowledge and understand what it is that the Lord is saying and doing in the spiritual, so that we can do it in the physical, to be in alignment, to walk in his will in contentment.
Yeah.
You know, I've never quite understood. Well, I do understand. I just, you know, the whole, I got saved because I don't want to go to hell thing. That's, to me, is weird. My salvation was more of a Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego thing. Yeah, he can deliver me from hell, but even if he doesn't, my sword is still his, because that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to go to hell. I mean, the whole thought of that is that's no bueno, but it's not it was never a factor in whether I want to obey him.
Yeah.
Or if I'm going to obey him.
Yeah.
I obey. It's like I tell people, I don't eat bacon because I don't like bacon. I don't eat bacon because I want to be obedient.
Yeah.
You know? it's the right thing to do. I want to please my Father. I want to be obedient because I love him, because he first loved me, like you said. And it's a relational thing. And until we like you said, surrender and die and all that, we don't really know who we are.
Yeah. And you know, how many of us are just doing things, going back to the relationship thing, you know, I give this object lesson a lot to people who were trying to understand what it means to be in a relationship with God is, you know, what is Christina's favorite meal? What is it?
Well, I'm going to say it's pancit.
Okay. And did she ever eat burgers?
She likes hamburgers. Yeah. In-N-Out's her favorite.
Okay. And what does she like on her burgers?
Everything.
Everything? Okay.
Tomato, onion,
if she's going to get a drink, what is the drink going to be?
She's going to drink probably water or Diet Coke.
Okay. And then what's her favorite flour?
She's not that type of girl.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
When you met her, you didn't say, "Hey, what's your favorite meal? What's your favorite burger? What do you like on your burger? What do you like to drink? What kind of flowers do you like?" You didn't ask her that. You learn all that because you're in a relationship with her.
Right.
So you know that when you want to get her a gift, you're not going to show up with a bunch of roses. You know, you're going to show up with something that she likes. Why? Because you know her. Like
a drill or a hand tool. Or something.
Yeah. So how many times do we come to God with our offering going, well, I started a homeless ministry. That's what I'm supposed to do, right? It's like, that's not what I asked you to do. I started, doing the 10-mile morning where I walk 10 miles and pray, and I'm just wearing out, and God's not doing like all these things. Like we're trying to it's like we're trying to do what God wants us to do without actually asking him or getting to know him. So we run ourselves ragged going, well, I've written 12 books and I've, been on the road for 20 years and I have, kept my whole family living in poverty. And God's like, I'm a businessman, or I called you to be, a roofer,
right?
Or whatever. But we don't even take the time to get to know him. It'd be like if you read a book and like, what women like? They like flowers. They like pink robes. If you show up to your wife with pink flowers and pink bathrobe, she's gonna be like, "What are you doing?" Like, you just got my face. Yeah. You don't know me at all.
One of the top 3 or top 5 reasons for pastors to leave their posts is because of burnout. But if you're doing God's will, you won't burn out.
Yeah,
you can't burn out doing God's will.
Yes, but also understanding. So there's motive behind that also. So like you can do God's will, but in your own strength.
Yep.
Like, so we forget that. So like we have this idea that we're working for God, but we're not. We're working with him in the sense of he lives through us and he's going to move through us. So if he's moving through us, then we're not moving. So we're not working for him. Like, we're not moving God's arms and legs. He is in us and we are his arms and legs. We're working together. He's the brain that moves the machine, so we're working with God, and if we're going to work with him, we have to remember that we have to allow him to do his part. Like, God's like, hey, go and do this. And you're like, cool. And he's like, but I'm with you. Like, I'm supposed to be with you. And we're like, okay, God, I got this. I got it. Cool. Let me get it from here. You chose me, so I'm the chosen one, so I can do this. And he's like, nah, you idiot. Okay, it's like the kid standing, like the teacher brings the kid to the chalkboard and says, work this math problem out. And the kid's like, okay, I got this. I've been doing this for a while. And they're staring at it and they're trying to figure out how to work the math problem. And the teacher's going, well, if you just like, hold up, teacher, I got it. You called me to answer this question. I'm going to answer this question. And then finally you rack your brain and you go, I'm burnt out. I can't figure it out. I've done everything I can. I don't know the answer. Obviously, I'm a stupid dumb. I'm going to go sit down and the kids are going to make fun of me. And the teacher walks over and goes, if you would have just carried the one. Oh, it's the same thing like in walking with God. He's like, I called you and chose you to do this thing. And we're like, cool. We never learn because we're like, he chose me. That means I'm here. I'm done. I've arrived, blah, blah, blah. And then we get burnt out. And God's going, calm down. Let me speak. Carry the one. Oh, why did it take me 20 years, 30 years, 45 years to figure that out?
Yeah.
you know, because we're trying to work for him and not with him. We're trying to be his hands and feet apart from the body.
Right.
You know,
And everyone's trying to
unity.
And everyone wants to be the neck because it controls the head.
God, yeah.
I'm going to let you go because you need to go catch your dad before you leave.
Yeah.
But I want to pray for you real quick.
Please do. And man, everybody, I just looked at the comments. You guys are really kind. And yes, definitely keep me in prayer. My wife and I in prayer. Her name is Kim.
How do they contact you? Do you have contact info?
I'm trying to see what I have written on my card because I don't want to give the wrong information out.
You have a card now?
Oh, are you kidding me? I've had cards, dude. It's got the little Reach Alliance logo on the back of it. It's got a.
You just froze.
I am a director.
All right, you were frozen.
That was God saying, "Hey, put."
You were frozen on my screen.
Oh, okay.
Can you show it again?
Okay. Yeah, I said.
Maybe we're not supposed to contact him. And then
Just keep.
your internet just went jacky.
You know what it is? You know what it is? Every time I put that business card up in front of the camera, it shuts off. So I'm not going to put it up there anymore. I'm going to give you guys I'll just give you guys my personal email address. I don't know how I type that. What do I do?
Go to the comment, type it in the comment. But put
It says,
yeah, what is it? Just say it and I'll type it.
Okay. Angelo, ANGELO MG77 at gmail.com.
There you go.
And then Angelo Gonzalez on your friends list, if they're on Facebook or whatever, they can click that as well. There is another Angelo Gonzalez out there. I'm the one that is the more handsome one of the other Angelo Gonzalez's that are doing ministry.
Cool.
But thank you guys, man. I really appreciate it.
I texted with Ted yesterday, asked him if he would be on the show, so he might be on here one of these days.
You need to have him on. Here's the thing. He feels really self-conscious about being on video chat. He doesn't like video chats. He'll be on the phone all day long.
Yeah, I will.
But you go on video chat and he feels awkward.
Whatever.
Like when we do we Skype in our guys from all over the US and he sits back and kind of like.
I told him it was a video interview. Hey,
yeah.
Is your Angelo MG77 at gmail.com associated or connected to a PayPal account?
It's not. If you want to be connected to a PayPal account,
if somebody wants to bless you, what is it?
KJ Murray.
MURRY.
MURRAY. Hang on, let me double check this. I believe it's KJ Murray 14 at Gmail. Let me double check it though.
What number was that? 13?
14.
In case somebody wants to bless you guys, I know you wouldn't ask. That's why I'm asking for you.
Okay. Yeah, KJ MURRAY 14 at gmail.com. That is my wife's email. She's the one, because like I said, my PayPal would have to be connected to a bank. I don't have an account.
That's right. Father, I want to bless my brother Angelo. Thank you for his friendship and his brotherhood all these years, Father. Pray blessing over you, Angelo and Kim. I pray protection over you and Kim. Physical, spiritual, emotional, psychological. I pray protection over your marriage and the territory that God continues to expand. I mean, Europe, Japan. I mean, it just keeps expanding. And we pray blessing and protection over that expansion. We pray, we unleash his angels that have been assigned to you to go before you, to walk in front, behind, above, below, and beside you guys. Continual protection over your territory, your finances, and your health. And the continual spirit of wisdom and revelation over you and Kim. And we love you.
Man. Dude, I love you too. Someone says she the money bag. I love it. Yeah. It's funny. She's the one with the bills. She's the one with the student loans. So
she's standing right there. She should pop in her little face.
She is upstairs asleep. I told her she needed to sleep in. I woke up and came downstairs. I am in my office, which is it's bare and empty. Like this right here is my desk with the computer stuff on it. I got artwork hanging in the corner. This is going to be finished up. That right there is my shower door on the floor. That's hopefully going to be installed today. Awesome. This is slowly coming together. But yeah. Oh, Lord. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Love you guys, man.
Love you too, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you later, buddy.
Happy Hanukkah, and see you on the other side.
Don't forget Hanukkah. Today's Christmas Eve, right? And then tomorrow is but today's also, is today the first? No, the third day of Hanukkah, right? Yeah.
Third day tonight.
And then there's Christmas on the 25th, and then Kwanzaa is on the 26th. And then I believe Festivus happens all month. So
Festivus, yeah, we're already doing Festivus. Like, you should have seen the feats of strength we had last night.
You're listening to Chameleon Church. Biblical Antidotes for the Modern Man. With your host, Allan Aguirre.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.